Hi there, welcome to my channel. I'm Megan Ashley and today I want to talk to you about grief. So the holidays are here and that's a really fun time for a lot of people, but for people who are grieving, it can be a very challenging time. And I know that many people are not comfortable talking about death, so I just wanted to do a short little video and kind of talk a little bit about my experience with grief during the holidays and the stages of grief, kind of open up a conversation about death and grief and sadness around the holidays so that other people might not feel so alone who are dealing with it. So I have my notes. The stages of grief. Number 1 is denial, to protect the mind from overwhelming emotions, and it could be like numbness. Stage number 2 is anger, aimed at anyone. For me, myself, I was angry with myself. I had a lot of guilt. I was angry with God. I was angry with my mom for passing away. I had the feeling of, how could you leave me? Even though I know that's irrational and it's hard not to judge yourself when you're feeling those things, but it's really important not to, because it's just a part of the cycle. There is so much pain beneath anger, so remember that. Bargaining is number 3. The desire to return everything back to normal and thinking, if only I didn't leave the room, if only I reacted differently. I was asking God to take me instead. Thinking, you know, if we could have just done something differently, maybe if I would have answered the phone, maybe if I would have, you know, checked in on them. Next stage is depression. What's the point of life? Sadness, regret, empty, lost, and lonely. It could be crying, could be difficulty sleeping, poor appetite. And the last stage is acceptance, accepting your new reality. Many people believe this means letting go, but that's not true. You learn to live with the new reality. It doesn't mean you feel okay and let go. It means you accept that you won't see them anymore. So many people think that you have to go through the stages in order, and that's false. You go through them, everyone's different. You might go through them backwards, you might go through one and then another, and sometimes for me I've noticed that I can go through what feels like all 5 in one day. For some context, my mom passed away in 2006, so almost 15 years ago, is that right? And then I also want to talk about complicated grief, and that's prolonged grief, when you're not able to transition through the stages. The emotions can still be as intense years later. So who goes through complicated grief? Parents who have lost children, people who lose someone tragically or violently, which in my case that's how my mom passed away. She was murdered. Someone who is dependent on someone or vice versa, someone with mental health problems, with financial difficulties, etc. So you can develop suicidal thoughts, blaming yourself for the death of a loved one. I was wishing that I had died too after my mom passed away. I spent a lot of time on that. But ultimately, grief is meant to be experienced. I struggled a lot with, where does my grief end and my depression begin? And I had to do a lot of therapy and a lot of, I had to get on medication, and there's no shame in that. Like, I had a very traumatic experience losing my mom. The night my mom was murdered, I was also stabbed, so I think my grief was very prolonged and hard to know. Like I said, hard to know where one thing stops and one thing begins. So there's no shame in having to seek help and getting on medication to help you cope with things. It could be short-term, could be long-term, but ultimately there is no timeline for the grief cycle. So it doesn't matter if you're fresh in your grief, and the holidays always make it worse, because maybe you have memories of your loved ones and maybe it's their first Christmas or their first Hanukkah not here. Maybe you're supposed to feel like you need to be happy and cheerful and celebrate when you really don't want to. Maybe having the Christmas stuff around is triggering, and maybe you don't want to celebrate this year. Maybe you don't want to do anything. All of that stuff is completely normal and it's okay. 15 years ago or so, it was really hard for me to celebrate the holidays without my mom, but now that it's been a longer time, I'm able to actually get into the Christmas spirit because that's what I celebrate. And I was really excited this year for Christmas, and so hang in there. It does get easier. I can't say that it gets better, but it gets easier, if that makes sense. Let me know how you're doing. I know it can be really challenging because a lot of people don't want to talk about your dead loved ones, and sometimes it is nice to know that they're remembered by others, or to hear their name, or, you know, for other people to let you know that they're thinking of them, but many people are afraid to do that. So I just wanted to give everyone an opportunity in this space, hold some space for you to say that it's okay, whatever you're going through with your grief, it's normal. Don't be afraid to seek help, therapy, counseling, like psychiatry. And if you need anyone to talk to, remember that I'm here. You can email me at any time and I would be glad to speak with you about this. So thank you so much for watching, and I'm going to be doing more grief chats in the year 2021. I'm going to be releasing a video every Wednesday, so be sure to subscribe. And if you found this helpful, then share it with someone else who might find it helpful. And yeah, be sure to subscribe so you see my next video, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching, and Happy New Year. Bye!